Hey, what in the hell's going on with your face? How are you? Look at you. Hey, it's Nick Digilio. Thank you for checking out my YouTube channel. I do almost daily videos here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe, it's free. Great way to help out. Give me some donations. It would help a lot. All the stuff that I do is DIY, and it helps keep the content going. Go to patreon.com. A great way to support artists and people who are doing music or art or short films or videos in this case, or monologues and stuff like that. It's a world where you can help out artists to keep their stuff going and to help support them in all the stuff that they're doing, and it would help me immensely to keep the videos going and to help out to keep my podcast going as well, even though that's a separate deal. The Nick D Podcast from the great RadioMisfits.com, Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Every Tuesday, every Friday, new podcast. But go to Patreon.com, pick a tier, donate, become a patron. You get exclusive bonus videos that nobody else gets, including behind-the-scenes WGN stories and more. Patreon.com/Nick D Show. Okay, I did theater a lot in Chicago for many, many, many years. 20 years, easily. I spent most of those years, I spent it with different theater companies doing storefront theater in Chicago for many years, but the majority of those years were spent at the Factory Theater, which is still going strong up on Howard Street in Rogers Park. The Factory Theater, check out factorytheater.com. Great group of people. I worked with them right when the theater started, when it was founded. I was artistic director on two different occasions, long runs. I was artistic director for about 10 years total at the Factory Theater. I appeared in shows and acted in many shows. I wrote a lot of shows. I directed a lot of shows. I appeared, wrote, and directed a lot of shows together at the same time. I put a lot of shows up there and did a lot of time there, and I loved working. So I have a lot of theater stories. There are a lot of theater stories. As a writer, as a director, as a performer, and as a member of the ensemble and board of the Factory Theater. So if you've ever done theater, if you've ever gone to the theater, you know that anything can happen during live performances in the theater, and you have to deal with it. If you're on stage and something weird happens on stage, whether it be somebody forgets their lines, or a prop blows up on stage, or a light goes out, or a music cue is not hit, or somebody is drunk, or somebody in the audience does something insane, which is mostly the case. You have to keep going. You have to improvise. You got to make it work. And there have been a lot of crazy theater stories, things that happen while you're in the performance of a theater. Terrific book called Stop the Show. I had the author on my radio show back on WGN a couple of times. And this book is filled with insane stories about what happened during live theater performances. These incidents that you got to keep going. You got to deal with it. And this is the third in a series of crazy theater stories that I'm telling. I told a story about a show that I did called Win, Place, or Show, in which an actor had his balls hanging out during most of the production. You can go back and check out that story. And then I told the infamous story about the run that Mickey Rooney had when he starred in Lend Me a Tenor here in Chicago at the Apollo Theater, and the nightmare that it was working with Mickey Rooney and the insane shit he did on stage. Well, this is the third one, and this is a personal one. Another crazy live theater story. All right. In the many years that I did stuff at the Factory Theater, I wrote a lot of shows, I directed a lot of shows, and a lot of them were successful. Thank you very much. And they were, and I'm grateful for that. One of the biggest successes that I was a part of was an adaptation that I wrote with Mike View of Nick Hornby's High Fidelity. So we adapted it to the stage. I co-wrote it with Mike, and then I directed it, and it was called The Vinyl Shop. Our version of it was called The Vinyl Shop, and it was inspired by High Fidelity and had a few scenes that were from High Fidelity in there, but we added our own personal stuff. I added a bunch of stories about relationships and breakups and stuff that I had. So it was a real personal thing for me and Mike as writers, and for me as a director. And when I read High Fidelity, it spoke to me, like so many guys who read that book in their 30s. Or late 20s. When you first read High Fidelity, it hits you. And so we adapted it, and it was a very successful show. It did very, very well. And by the way, this was 2 years before Cusack and his group of people did their film version of it, which again was taken, the book by Nick Hornby was a British book. It took place in England. We took it, Mike and I, when we adapted it, in the Vinyl Shop. We took it from England and put it in Chicago. And the record store was located in Wicker Park in Chicago. And all the characters were from Chicago. It took place in Chicago. Oddly, Cusack did the same thing. His record store in the movie took place. It was in Wicker Park. And he transferred all of the characters and all of the stories and everything to Chicago and made it American. But we did it first. We did. It's a fact. Look up the records if you want. So the Vinyl Shop was done in, we put it up in April of 1998, and it was a huge success. We were nominated for Jeffs. It had a very long run. We were sold out. In fact, a few of the guys who actually were a part of what would be eventually the High Fidelity movie with John Cusack came to see our show, including people who were a part of the writing of the show, including a guy named D.V. DeVincentes, who in fact has gone on to much success and won Emmys and all kinds of stuff. He co-wrote with Cusack and a couple of other guys the screenplay for High Fidelity, the version of High Fidelity. They came to see our show. And my friend Matt O'Neill played Barry, the part that Jack Black eventually would play in the movie. And Matt won an award for it. He did a great job. He was the original Barry. And he did get a part in the movie. They wanted to cast. Eventually, they wanted to cast Matt for the role of Barry because he played it on stage in my production of it. And so he went in. He didn't get the part. They gave it to Jack Black, but they gave him a part in the movie. And if you want to see the original Barry, the guy who originated the role, and you're watching High Fidelity, if you watch the movie High Fidelity, the guy that comes into the record store and Cusack says, "I will now sell a couple of copies of the Beta Band's album." When they put the Beta Band song on, Matt, the original guy, the guy who played Barry originally, is the guy with the blue jacket on, who starts to bob his head, says, hey, who is this? And they say Beta Band. He's like, all right, I like it. That's Matt O'Neill, who originated the role of Barry on stage. So the next time you watch it and you see the guy who's digging the Beta Band, hey, who is this? That's Matt O'Neill. He played Barry first, before Jack Black did. So anyway, so their movie obviously went on to huge success, and I have very mixed feelings about it because I can't be subjective. I personally think we did a much better job with the Vinyl Shop than they did with the movie. So that's just me. But anyway, the show was a big success, the Vinyl Shop, and we ended up taking it to New York for the Fringe Festival. Mike and his girlfriend at the time produced it. They put up all the money, and we went to New York, and we spent 3 weeks in New York. And I went along, obviously, because I co-wrote, I directed it, and I did the sound for it. And so we spent 3 weeks in New York. The entire cast, which includes my first ex-wife, and friends and actors, Matt O'Neill, and all the other actors who were in the original cast. We all went to New York. It was all funded by Mike and his girlfriend, and we spent 3 weeks in New York, and they performed the Vinyl Shop. And we performed it at a theater called the Crane Theater, which was on East 4th Street in the East Village. And it was between 2nd Avenue and Bowery, in the Bowery. And it's a pretty legendary theater because inside that theater is this bar called the KGB Bar, which is this legendary bar with a lot of history. And at that time, obviously, it was 1999 when we did this. We were there for 3 weeks in August, late August. And I was, I didn't quit drinking until many years later. So I was a major drinker at that time. So I essentially spent 3 weeks in New York drunk when I wasn't like doing the sound for the show or hyping up the show. Like after every performance, we went out and we got shit-faced. We spent 3 weeks in New York eating, getting drunk, and performing the Vinyl Shop. We won awards for it. It won an audience award at the Fringe Festival. Matt won Best Supporting Actor at the Fringe Festival. And it did very well. We had big houses, and it was great. And the 3 weeks that we spent in New York were magnificent. It was great. It was unbelievable that we were in Manhattan doing a play in New York off Broadway as part of the Fringe Festival, but still, we were in a 99-seat house in Manhattan doing a play. And it was great, and we had a ton of people show up to see it, lots of people from the Fringe Festival, lots of people, and again, it won awards and all kinds of cool. So it was very, very successful, and it's one of the proudest things I've ever done. The adaptation that I did for High Fidelity, the Vinyl Shop, I am unbelievably proud of it. I think one of the best things I've ever written and ever directed, and I'm incredibly proud of it. So one of the cast members of the show knew an actress, and her name is Emily Bergl. Now, Emily Bergl, you probably have seen. She's a terrific actress and has been in a ton of stuff. She's currently in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel as a recurring character named Tessie. She was in Shameless. She's done a lot of TV work, a lot of movies. She was in Men in Trees. I best remember her as Francie from Gilmore Girls. She was one of Paris and Rory's nemesis. And she was fantastic. That's Emily Bergl. Now, one of the actors in our production of The Vinyl Shop went to college with Emily Bergl, the actress, and they studied, acting together in college, and they knew each other, and they were really good friends. And so she lived in New York at the time, and he's like, hey, Emily is going to come see the show. Now, this was a few years before Gilmore Girls and a few years before any of that stuff, but she had just starred in The Rage, Carrie 2. Yeah, so she was Carrie 2, Electric Boogaloo. So her name wasn't Carrie. I think it was Rachel in that movie. But anyway, she was the star of The Rage, Carrie 2. And it had come out, played in theaters, didn't do great. It wasn't a horrible movie. It was kind of fun. She was good in it. And I had a great time. And then my friend's like, yeah, I went to college with The Rage. I went to college with Carrie 2, Electric Boogaloo. And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's awesome. And he's like, she's going to come see the show. So we're like, wow, all right. So she came to a Sunday matinee of one of the performances that we did while we were in New York for 3 weeks, being drunk and having a great time. So anyway, she decided that she was going to come. Now, she was young at this time. She had just done The Rage, the Carrie 2 thing. And she was probably 23 or something at that time, probably right out of college. And she got this gig, the sequel to Carrie. It was a big deal. So she was really flying high on it. And my friend, the actor in the play, he had a small role. He had three different. He had they played small roles. These other two guys, I'm not going to give their names. Maybe I should. I don't know. But anyway, these other two guys were in the show, and they had small roles. So they played multiple roles. But one role that this guy had, Kevin is his name. He played a guy who comes into the record shop to trade in his CDs. And it's this scene where he plays a guy who walks into the record store to trade in his CDs for money, because he's just moved in with his girlfriend, and these CDs are his doubles. So he took the CDs that were originally his doubles and brought them in to sell them. And the guys give him shit because he's selling his doubles and not hers. Because eventually these guys at the record store are like, dude, you're going to break up. You shouldn't be getting rid of these CDs because it doesn't matter. You're going to break up. So the scene was one of my favorites, and it was an audience favorite. It was a huge one. When we got nominated for Jeff Awards, and we were asked to perform a scene from The Vinyl Shop, we did the scene. My actors did the scene where the guy trades in his CDs that, he's moving in with his girlfriend, and those are his doubles, and the guys are like, oh my God, are you making a mistake? You must really love this girl, because clearly at some point you're going to break up and you're going to miss your doubles. And that's based on personal experience, by the way, for me. So he was in this one scene that was just fantastic, and it was great. It was a standout scene. But he had and the other roles he had are small. He wasn't a major. He was not one of the lead characters in the show. So he knew Emily Bergl, Rage 2, Electric Boogaloo, Carrie. So we're there, and I would stand out front, while people were coming in, because I directed the show, and then I would sit up in the booth with my beautiful stage manager, Dana. She would do the lights and some of the cues, and I would do sound, and we would sit up there and drink beer and watch the show. So Emily Bergl shows up. I recognize her, and she's with a couple of people, drunk. So she's not. She's pretty hammered. And she comes in, and I don't say anything about her being in The Rage, Carrie 2, which I believe may have still been in theaters at that time. It might have still been playing in theaters. I don't know. But anyway, she shows up, and she's she's a little tipsy, a little rowdy. And she comes in and sits down, and the show starts, the lights go down. Now, she's an actress. She's a theater actress. She studied acting. She has appeared on stage with my friend Kevin, who's in the show. And they've acted together. So she knows what happens when you do a play. She knows what you're supposed to do as an audience member. She knows how you're supposed to conduct yourself as an audience member, because she's an actress. And I guess she forgot about all of that. So the first entrance that Kevin makes in a very brief scene as a customer in the record store, he walks in. Carrie 2, Electric Boogaloo goes, yeah! And starts screaming the minute that Kevin walks on stage and clapping and screaming and kind of getting her friends to applaud. Kevin's got like one line in the scene. Yeah! They're screaming. And she knows Kevin's friend, who is another actor that they knew. She starts screaming for him when he makes an entrance. Yeah, man, yeah! And she's, a little tipsy. So this is a 2-act. This is during the first act. So she's laughing out. Now, granted, she's having a great time watching the show. She's laughing, but it's one of those deals where it's like a person who's had a couple who's laughing a little too hard at stuff, like where the actors are on stage going, okay, you laughed, pull it back a little bit, we got to keep going. So she's just, and again, very agreeable, having a great time, but letting everybody within the next county know that she's having a great time. Laughing really loud, really hard, really long, on top of other people's lines. And again, she's an actress, a stage actress, who knows how annoying that can be and how fucking annoying it is to screw up the rhythm of what's happening in a scene while the actors are trying to do it. And it also annoys the audience members, the other audience members. We had a full house. The place was packed. And she's, having a great time. But, so the first act ends. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And she was like, so everybody goes out front to smoke, including, I don't know if I was smoking at that time. I don't think I was. I can't remember. But anyway, I went out front, and there's Carrie to Electric Boogaloo, and so I'm just kind of standing there, and she had a bag with her, a purse with her, and she pulls out a bottle of Stoli right on the front steps. This theater was on like a front stoop, the East Village. It was like a brownstone like walk-up thing. And the KGB bar, by the way, was upstairs, and that place was fantastic. Can't even tell you the number of nights we spent there, closed that place, and got loaded. But anyway, so she pulls out a bottle of Stoli, which is about half full, and she's like, "Get on it, bitches!" And she starts swinging out of the bottle. Let's take it, bitches! And she's giving the bottle to her friends, right out in front. And there's like half the house is out there. People are smoking or getting a breath of fresh air because it was August and it was summertime, so everybody was outside waiting for us to call, the second act to start. So she's like, "Have at it, bitches!" And she keeps calling everybody bitches. She offers me the bottle. I'm like, "Nah, I'm good. Don't worry about it. I'm fine." And she's drinking the bottle. So she's got this bottle of Stoli. Now, she wasn't drinking it during the show, but during the intermission out front on the stoop, "Let's get at it, bitches. Let's do it, bitches," guzzling Stoli. Puts the cap back on, puts it in the bag. All right, it's time for the second act. She comes in, and during the second act, at this point, she's just uproariously screaming. And then, during the show, and Kevin, by the way, because I went to visit them during the intermission. I went to visit the cast when they were backstage, so I ran backstage to see how they're doing. Kevin comes up to me, he's like, "I'm really sorry, man. I had no idea. I'm really sorry." I'm like, "No, it's cool, man. She's having a good time. It's cool." And he's like, "No, but it's pissing me off because, because he had the big scene where he had to trade in the CDs. And during that whole scene, she's like, yeah, like yelling. And this is a scene that kind of builds up in comedy as the guys in the record store are convincing this person that he should break up with the girlfriend that he just moved in with, and that he should keep the CDs because the CDs are more important than the relationship. That's what the scene was about. It was like, really? Should I sell my CDs? Why not sell your CDs? And I've done that. I've had personal stuff that I had to get rid of when I moved in with somebody that I lost forever because of divorces and shit that I sold thinking, oh yeah, I'll be with this person forever. Some of that stuff included CDs. So yes, it happens. So the scene is sort of this subtle, funny scene that builds up to this guy taking back a lot of his CDs. Like really good ones, like the White Album. He takes back the White Album, and he takes back It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back by P.E. And these guys, Barry and Dick and Rob, convince him that he's making a mistake by selling these CDs, and it builds up nicely. But every single time he spoke, Carrie 2 Electric Boogaloo was going, yeah, man! Ha! So anyway, show ends. She's had a great time. And again, it was annoying, but it wasn't. I've had much worse audience members. Trust me, much, much worse audience members. She was drunk. She was having a good time. She was yelling a little bit too much, but still. So anyway, when it ended, they come out for the curtain call, and Kevin and Josh walk up. Those are the two guys. They walk up to do their bow. They walk up, and Carrie 2 Electric Boogaloo's in the third row. She kind of stands up, runs on, goes, yeah, like in his face, and goes back and sits down. This is Carrie to Electric Boogaloo. This would go on to be Francie, the nemesis of Rory and of Paris in Gilmore Girls. So next time you watch Gilmore Girls and you see Francie, who is the sort of bitchy nemesis, that's the girl who was loaded, screaming, "Yeah, let's go bitches," while drinking Stoli and having a great time during Vinyl Shop. So after the show, we're going to go out for a drink. And that's when I ended up meeting her. We went to this bar around the corner. I can't remember the name of it, but there was a bar around the corner from the Crane Theater when we weren't upstairs at KGB Bar. KGB Bar was hip, very hip, and it got very crowded at night and on the weekends and stuff. So we kind of went to different places because it was really, really crowded. The KGB Bar. If you ever go to New York and you go to the Lower East Side, in the Village, in the East Village, definitely check out the KGB Bar on 4th. It's fucking great, legendary. But anyway, we went to this bar around the corner and we sat down, had a lovely conversation with her. She told me all about what it was like to work on Carrie 2, and told me all kinds of behind-the-scenes stories that were hilarious and fun. And she was drunk. And then, like, another night we met her up at a club, like a dance club. I lasted about 5 minutes. And she was having a great time and dancing. So I danced with Carrie 2, Electric Boogaloo. I danced with Emily Bergl, who would go on to be Francie. And I shit myself, by the way, when I was watching, because, you know, as a fanatic, Gilmore Girls fanatic, I was watching the show on a regular basis. And when I saw her show up, I'm like, oh my God, that's drunk-ass Carrie 2, Electric Boogaloo. Let's go bitches. Stoli, Vinyl Shop, New York, summer of '99, Fringe Festival. That's her. That's Carrie 2. That's drunk-ass Vinyl Shop girl. And she's fantastic on Gilmore Girls. She's fantastic on Mrs. Maisel. And she works with Amy Sherman Palladino regularly and has done great work, regular on Men and Trees, great on Shameless, terrific actress, wonderful, really fun, and was having a great time. And God bless her, because she was in Carrie 2 in theaters, The Rage, Carrie 2 in theaters that summer. So she was having a great fucking time. She was in a sequel to one of the best horror movies ever made, and it wasn't a bad movie. She's very good in it. It's a lot of fun. She was like 23 at the time. And, drinking Stoli, let's go bitches, loving the fact that her friend from college was in this crazy adaptation of High Fidelity and just was whooping it up. And yes, sometimes she went a little too far because she was drunk, but she had a great fucking time. And as long as people have a great time, I don't care. You know what? And it was great. It was a little bit, at times I was like, pull it back, Carrie. Use your telekinesis to get sober just for a little while. But yeah, the whole pulling out the Stoli, broad daylight on the stoop in front of the Crane Theater, East Village, New York. Let's go, let's hit it, bitches, and drinking Stoli before the second act started. Fantastic. Anyway, Emily Bergl, terrific fun, had a great time, danced with her at a club, left immediately because I don't like clubs. And she had a great time, told great stories about the making of the movie, and then 2 years later, I'm watching her on TV screaming in my apartment when she pops up on the Gilmore Girls. So anyway, there's crazy theater story number 3. Carrie 2 got drunk and started screaming during my play, and it was great. And that run was amazing. One of the best 3 weeks I've ever spent. My cast, we all had an amazing time. My ex-wife, who was not my ex-wife, although she did ask for a divorce when we got back from that trip. Anyway, we had a great time. It was unbelievable. It was a great summer, the late summer of 1999. The only unfortunate thing was everywhere I went, I had to hear that goddamn Smooth song by Santana and that Rob, whatever the fuck his name is, and just forget about it. Smooth was playing everywhere. Every bar we went, walking down the street, coming out of windows in tenements, in cabs, on the street. I could not get away from that. It's the only thing that I hated about that trip was that I could not get away from fucking Smooth by Santana. Oh my God. And I will say this real quick aside. One of my favorite memories ever of that trip, this was in 1999. There were free concerts that they did every Tuesday at lunchtime. There was like the lunchtime concert for business people, and they would do them between the two towers, the World Trade Center. And we all went down, a bunch of us went down, and we saw, on a Tuesday afternoon, we saw Alex Chilton perform live. And it was amazing. It was free. It was a beautiful day. Alex Chilton, and, you know, rest in peace, the amazing Alex Chilton, one of the greatest songwriters of all time, performing all of his great songs with a terrific band. And, like, when it was over, he just walked off stage and walked into the crowd and said hi to everybody. It was a beautiful, cloudless, sunny day. We sat between the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, and watched Alex Chilton as part of this incredible 3-week trip where a play that I directed and co-wrote was being performed in Manhattan. It's an incredible memory. And then 2 years later, those towers were gone. So I have that memory etched. I'll never forget it. Alex Chilton, my friends, my wife at the time, beautiful sunny day, Twin Towers in front of us, watching Alex Chilton, one of the great memories of that incredible trip. And then we walked back to the hotel, and on the way, I heard that goddamn song by Santana and almost kicked in windows. But anyway, hey, Emily Bergl, watch The Rage, Carrie 2. She's awesome. She had a great time. Drank some vodka. Let's go, bitches. Great story. By the way, this is a terrific book. Stop the Show. Lots of incredible stories, and there are a lot more that I have of insane shit that happens when you do live theater, because that's what happens. Check out the book. Check out Carrie 2, Electric Boogaloo. Ooh, bitches.